And we begin with the push in Congress for a commission to investigate the violent breach of the Capitol on January 6th. The resolution to investigate the assault passed the House with this session's largest bipartisan vote. That said, only 35 Republicans joined all Democrats in voting to create the commission, and that includes two of South Florida's three Republican members of Congress, Carlos Gimenez and Maria Salazar.
Congressman Gimenez is live with us now this morning via Skype. Congressman, welcome. Great to see you. How are you this morning?
I'm doing pretty good. How about you, Michael? How are you doing?
We are excellent, thanks. Congressman, let's just sort of get to the bottom line here. You voted for the independent investigation of the assault on the Capitol. Why did you vote yes on that?
Well, about less than a month after the January 6th, there was a Republican representative, Rodney Davis, put forward a bill very similar to what was finally agreed upon, and I signed on to it. And it called for an independent panel of 5 appointees by Republicans, 5 appointees by Democrats. The subpoena powers were limited to those that both sides agreed to. And at the end, there's going to be a report which the majority of this 10-member panel will have to agree to. That's a pretty bipartisan group of folks. And so I want to get to the bottom of how it was that the Capitol was breached. I've been an incident commander. I've been a fire chief. I've been mayor of Miami-Dade County on major incidents. And what I saw there was a real failure of incident command, a real failure to take into account the intelligence that they probably had, that some members there were going to try to do something like this. And so we need to get to the bottom of it. How did it happen, and make sure it never happens again?
So you are looking to find out why intelligence, why preparation wasn't there. Does that also include questions about who instigated, who was involved, along with what did they know and when did they know it? Is that more comprehensive? Because that's the part that seems to be pretty controversial to Republicans.
Yeah, well, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people say, well, it was the president that instigated. Well, I know for a fact that there were people there at 9 o'clock in the morning ready to storm the Capitol way before the president even spoke. So I don't think it had anything to do with the president. There were people that had planned this, I believe, people that probably instigated some folks that really hadn't thought about storming the Capitol and then got caught up in it. And so there were people in there that did that. But again, what I saw there was a lack of a response on the part of Capitol Police. And I'm not putting the finger of blame on the good men and women of Capitol Police. What I am putting the finger on is the leadership. And I have real serious doubts about the leadership of the Capitol Police. Capitol Police is and its leadership. It's actually kind of governed by a 5-member board. The Sergeant of Arms of the House and the Senate, which are appointed by the Speaker of the House and the Majority Leader. And so I want to know what the heck happened, who knew what, and why certain things, why precautions were not taken. And then once this thing started getting out of hand, how come they didn't get it back in hand? It just seems to me that there was a really lack of a lot of safeguards there. And I want to make sure this never happens again, because, this is the people's house, and that should never happen. This is the symbol of America, and the symbol of America should never be violated like that.
Yeah. Congressman, as you well know, right after the vote, and you were one, as we said earlier, of 35 Republicans who voted for the investigation, former President Trump issued a statement. Here's a printout of it. It says briefly, "See 35 wayward Republicans, they just can't help themselves. We have much better policy and are much better for the country, but the Democrats stick together, Republicans don't. They don't have the Romneys, Little Ben Sassis, and the Cheneys of the world. Unfortunately, we do." Now, you're not mentioned by name here, but he is talking about the 35 Republicans. So are you sort of on his hit list now, on former President Trump's hit list?
I don't think so. I've had disagreements with policies. I've been a supporter of the president's, and I think by and large, the vast majority of his policies were good for America. What's happening right now, I am totally against most of the things that President Biden is doing. The $6 trillion in spending and basically putting our kids and grandchildren, in debt for generations to come. A lot of the things, that he's doing, I am against. The Green New Deal, support of stacking the Supreme Court. There's so many things here I'm against, and I've been very consistent in my votes. Every once in a while, I will cross the line and vote with the Democrats. What's interesting is you have me here because I voted, I crossed the line. You haven't had any Democrats here in this session because they haven't crossed the line, and it's been very, very partisan.
Yeah, well, in fairness, if I may say, I think we only said that you voted in a bipartisan way, not that you crossed the line. We're not making any judgments about how you voted.
Cross the line, Michael, when I say cross the line, I'm talking about voting in a bipartisan way. And so really, I've only seen Democrats. I mean, the last vote on funding this commission, we saw the first time that I saw some Democrats start to, basically buck, Nancy Pelosi and the party. And it was interesting because it was the squad that did it. But by and large, the Democrats, and the president is right, have been, straight down the line, which is rather unfortunate, and shows you the kind of iron grip that Nancy Pelosi has on her party. And unfortunately, also the iron grip that the far left has on the party. Look, I just sponsored a resolution that called Hamas a terrorist organization, reaffirms our commitment to Israel, and also, is condemning anti-Semitism around the world. I got about 80 of my colleagues on the Republican side, sign up as co-sponsors. I have yet to get a Democrat co-sponsor. Amazing. It's amazing what's going on.
Congressman, we are in some divided times, and I want you to know that we are with you all about bipartisanship. I want to go back to something you said before. You mentioned the January 6th in the morning, you were in your hotel lobby with your chief of staff, Alex Farrow. What you said about that morning all of a sudden is getting all kinds of headlines and attention this week, except you said it 4 months ago sitting right here. Well, you weren't sitting here. We were looking at you on Skype. But you told the story of being in the hotel lobby. It wasn't, if I remember correctly, it wasn't you that heard what these people who were in helmets and tactical gear in the lobby had to say. It was Alex, your chief of staff, who thought that they said they were going to storm the FBI headquarters, and you reported that to the FBI. Do you expect that to be part of, the commission may not happen because of the U.S. Senate, but let's say it goes forward. Is that something that you will feel important? Will Alex be testifying? What is the context of that, do you think?
Well, I think the big uproar is that instead of saying lobby, I said room. And so people said, hey, I have instigators in my room all morning before it happened. And no, it was the lobby. It wasn't my room. Okay. My wife would have never allowed a bunch of people in my room. Okay. So, but by and large, I did tell that story, months ago. And then I mentioned it on CNN the other day and said room, and that caused a little stir, but then got cleared up and they hadn't heard about it. And yeah, things like that need to come out. If in fact, look, I know for a fact that Alex Farrow told the FBI and the Capitol Police at 9 o'clock in the morning that, hey, what he heard was, hey, we got this guy in riot gear and talking to these other guys saying that they're going to storm the FBI at 2 o'clock. Well, it happens that the Capitol was stormed at 2 o'clock. So maybe instead of the FBI, it was the Capitol. But they should have known that something was happening and that there were instigators in the crowd.
Just okay, so to your point, this very story, wouldn't that make it so important to also figure out what group instigated this? They had T-shirts made. This was organized. Yeah. Wouldn't it be just as important to figure out who planned it, who instigated it, who might have fueled it, and how that happened, along with the security breaches?
Oh, I agree 100%. Look, let me go back to when I was mayor and we had those disturbances a year ago, right? And not disturbances, really, there were protests, but we knew that there were instigators there. We had the intelligence that there were instigators in there. And so we took the measures necessary to make sure that, hey, we'll protect your right to protest, but we're not going to protect your right to violate the law. And so we took strong measures. People tested us, and they weren't successful. The same thing should have happened at the Capitol. There were instigators there. There were people that were going to cause trouble. The vast majority of the people there were not going to be there to cause trouble. Some were, and that's what happened. But, knowing that, we should have taken, I'm saying the Capitol Police and law enforcement agencies in Washington, D.C. should have taken appropriate steps to make sure it didn't happen.
Yeah,
and
Congressman,
then it appears that they have a lack of communications. I don't know how their incident command system worked. There were reports that the National Guard was offered and rejected. Why? So all of those things need to be investigated.
We understand. All right, stay where you are. We want to talk about Hamas and Israel in the Middle East. Get your views on that. So everyone, keep your places. We'll be back with Carlos Gimenez in just a minute. We are talking live with Congressman Carlos Gimenez. Congressman, let's talk about Israel and the Palestinians. I was in Aventura Wednesday night at a pro-Israel rally. I heard your very strong remarks in favor of Israel, its right to defend itself. There are some Democrats and supporters of Israel who have said its use of force in the attacks was disproportionate, that they struck too hard. What's your view on that?
Look, I mean, you have to strike hard in order to disincentivize, any future attacks. If you just go lightly and go back, well, thank you for launching, thousands of rockets into Israel. I'm just going to go give you a little love tap. That doesn't work. I mean, this is what's called cutting the grass in Israel. What happens is Hamas, gets support and gets supplied by Iran. These rockets are all Iranian rockets. Then they feel that they are strong militarily. Then they launch these rockets. Israel comes in and then degrades their military, capability, and then we have a ceasefire. So this is, one of those things that's happening. What we have to do as a country is to stand strong with Israel. If we don't stand strong with Israel, we are inviting more violence. We have to show strength. We have to show that we're with them, and that's why, I will always be with Israel. I'm condemning Hamas as a terrorist organization. Any organization that launches indiscriminately thousands of rockets into civilian areas, mainly just to cause civilian casualties, in my eye, is a terrorist organization. Israel is very measured in its response, trying to strike military targets. But then Hamas uses their own children and women, hospitals and schools as shields and puts their military hardware either in them or right next to them. And so, who's the bad guy here? And it's unfortunate that some people in Congress haven't figured that out yet, and now start saying that Israel is an apartheid nation and that we should be supporting Hamas and Hezbollah. I will never support Hamas and Hezbollah. I will always be and always stand by Israel.
Congressman, I want to bring it back to Washington for just the last minute and a half or so that we have with you. After the vote to impeach President Trump in January, you defended your colleague Liz Cheney's vote. You did not think that, you actually said she voted her conscience, you supported her, you didn't think that she should leave her leadership position. Of course, now she has been voted out of her leadership position by her party. And it was done on a voice vote, so your constituents don't know how you voted. Will you tell them?
Look, it was done inside and it's a secret ballot, but I will tell you this. What most people think the reason why Liz Cheney lost her leadership position is not because of of her vote. Liz Cheney needed to move on. We need to now focus on what's happening right now with the Biden administration. And our message is very clear. What's happening at the border, what's happening with inflation, what's happening with gas prices, what's happened right now with Israel, what's going to happen with the Green New Deal. All those things are the things that we need to talk about. What happened on January 6th, it'll be investigated and all that, but as the leader, as one of our leaders, we really should be focusing in on what the Biden administration is doing.
So we'll focus on all of those things, but how did you vote? How did you vote?
That was a secret vote, so I'm not going to tell anybody how I vote, but you can tell, that I understand the reasons why she lost her leadership position.
Congressman Carlos Gimenez. Sorry, go ahead.
See, if we don't have a script, we talk together. Great to have you, as always, and thank you. There is, to your point, so much to talk about, and you will be back soon, I hope.
Okay, I thank you and look forward to coming back whenever you want.
Thank you very much.